Super Bowl is here, boys and girls, I should say. Finally, Super Bowl is here. For anyone that's living underneath a rock, it is the reigning Super Bowl champions and the Chiefs playing the 49ers. It's a matchup that pretty much early on in the season, probably a lot of people predicted. And as I said last week, it's a matchup I don't really like, but so be it. I love football. I love the Super Bowl. I love Usher, so I'll be watching it. But yeah, we're just going to break it down. We're going to make it super easy. We're just going to break down matchups for this game, predictions, MVP predictions too. Why not? We'll just run through the whole gauntlet and just bombard you guys with as much Super Bowl information as possible. So
I think I have to test you on this. Give me 5 Usher songs.
Yeah is number 1.
Okay.
In the club with my home. That's the same fucking song.
Yeah, near it.
Look, I am an avid person that can admit that when it comes to song names, I suck. But if you play the song,
okay, we're gonna do a little sing it for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't have to sing. Yeah.
In the club with my homies.
That's yeah.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Until you play the song for me, I'm not going to be able to regurgitate. Regurgitate anything. All right. But I promise you, when the songs are on, I will know the hooks at least. All right. So screw you. All right.
So you're a pop radio fan, not an Usher fan.
No, I enjoy his songs. So I'm not on the same level as like I'm a Taylor Swift fan, so I know everything. I appreciate Usher as an artist. Okay. I'm not a super fan.
Okay, super fan. Okay, that works.
No. When I say I'm gonna be watching Usher, I'm excited to see Usher. He's a great performer. He's introduced us to Justin Bieber. Maybe he performs too. Special guest. We don't know. So
we'll find out. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get Ludacris and Lil Jon, but
it just sucks that he's headlining the Super Bowl, but the biggest artist in the crowd is actually in a suite.
I'm okay with that.
You know why I'm not okay with that? Is every single 5 seconds the camera's going to pan to her, just with her dancing because she supports all the artists. But like, it should be just focus on Usher. I don't need to see Taylor Swift. I talked about this last week. I already talked about this last week. But it's the NFL. It's the Super Bowl. They're gonna milk out everything possible. So,
okay, fine. You got me started. I'll go on my 1 minute, and I'll time this right now. 1 minute spiel of why Taylor Swift should have done the Super Bowl.
Go.
Because the artists themselves do not make money off the Super Bowl performance. They do it basically for free. They're given a certain amount of money. I forgot how many millions, but they're given a certain amount of money to pay the dancers, create a stage, all that stuff, right? And then everything else comes out of their pocket. I think like The Weeknd paid a lot of stuff out of his pocket, but the flip side to that for the artist is exposure. If they have a new album coming out, those album sales skyrocket. If they have something else coming out, like a tour, those ticket sales skyrocket, XYZ. The reason I advocate for Taylor Swift to do the Super Bowl show is because she has the money to put on a fucking badass performance, like stage and set. And, I want like the Katy Perry, I want a tiger coming out or whatever. Like that shit was cool. So that's why I would like to see Taylor Swift do it, because she would put on production where Usher probably will, and I hope he does, and I get proven wrong. But that's my advocation for Taylor Swift to do the Super Bowl, and that's the only time I'll advocate for Taylor Swift.
I 100% agree with that. I would love to see her perform at the Super Bowl. They actually were probably looking at her, but she already had her tour dates in place, hence why she's in Tokyo right now. When they originally asked her, and she wasn't dating Travis at the time, so I highly doubt, she knew the whirlwind was coming her way. But who knows? Maybe in the next few years she'll do it.
It's not going to happen.
I doubt it, but
you know why it's not going to happen?
She's too rich.
Nope. The Super Bowl halftime show is ran by Jay-Z. He chooses the artist. You think he's going to pick Taylor Swift over his own wife?
No, because his own wife hasn't won a Grammy for best album, so of course not.
Oh God, this went from a football podcast completely
sideways. This is a solid podcast. They're talking about music and artists. I really like it.
Yeah, we're boring. Don't get too invested. Anyways, back to the Super Bowl.
Football. 49ers and Chiefs, right? 49ers, a perennial superhouse in the NFC. I think a lot of people had them predicted to be in the Super Bowl early on in the season. Chiefs, before the season started, probably were a favorite as well. After week one with the Lions and Kadarius Toney, that those odds plummeted. But they're back, right? Just what good teams do, and they're back in the Super Bowl. So we have a solid matchup. Matchups all across the board. We could start off with, let's start with what everyone loves. It's offense.
Okay.
Okay. Do you just want to break it down position by position, or do you want to go, what the big battles are?
Let's go big battles. Doing position by position, those are individual battles within themselves. Linemen going after linemen and whatnot. But let's start with the keys of both offenses and what they need to do.
Okay.
Any particular team you want to start off with, Chiefs or Niners first?
Yeah, Super Bowl champions. Let's go with the Chiefs.
Okay. So the Chiefs, my opinion, for the Chiefs to have success on the offense is, it sounds kind of the story of the Chiefs' entire season. Throw the ball, complete the passes, they'll basically win. I know a lot of Chiefs fans are going to say, well, Pacheco's key and blah, blah, blah. He is absolutely key. The key for Pacheco, though, is to consistently churn his legs and get 3+ yards per carry. If Pacheco is getting around 3.5 to 4 yards a carry, that makes the passing game a lot easier for Patrick Mahomes. On top of that, I believe Joe Tooney might be out, or snap count, pitch count, whatever it may be. If I'm not mistaken, I just read Andy Reid said it's a strength thing. It's not about if he's fit to play. It's more of a strength thing on that pectoral injury.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, yes, the key to the Chiefs is passing, but it's Patrick Mahomes. So it's not going to be the key is, clean pocket passing and blah, blah, blah. No, dude, you have Armstead and Bosa and Chase and Fred Warner running down the barrel trying to chase you. It's going to be Mahomes' legs that's going to create this entire passing for the offense. It's going to be the backyard style, come up with it off the whim type of plays that is going to help that offense churn and keep the ball moving. On top of Pacheco's 3.5 yards per carry is my goal. Basically, get yourself in third and manageable every time, and you can have success against the Niners defense. You have to be wary that they are a good run stopping defense, so don't get bogged down on running the ball too much. But also, that you can throw. You got to trust your receivers. Rashee Rice has to show up big. Kelsey has to show up big. And then like Watson and all these other guys, they might not get all the targets, but when they do, they got to capitalize on them. So for me, the key to success, it sounds basic. I know it sounds simple, but it's Mahomes in the passing game. If Mahomes' legs are moving, the passing game is going to be moving. And on top of that, if Pacheco's getting 3.5+ yards per carry, it just makes everything more manageable and simplified.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good breakdown. I think I agree with you where everyone's like, it has to be Pacheco that runs on the 49ers. The 49ers are ranked 25th in the NFL against the run, which is not great for how much we tout their defense to be. But, when people kind of look at this matchup, the reason they say it is because they saw the way the Lions ran on them first, half of the NFC Championship game. Don't get it twisted. As much as I love Pacheco, he's not the same type of beast as Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. That's just the Lions. That's who they are, right? They love running the ball. They like being methodical. That's not the Chiefs. The Chiefs use Pacheco in a very smart way. They use him, they don't expect him to be a bellback. They don't expect him to be someone that's going to consistently get the ball and provide damage. The way that Pacheco works is he runs, and they feed him the ball enough where eventually he will pop one off. Right? That's just the way that it's almost an inevitable guarantee that it's going to happen. But in this scenario, I think you can attempt to do that in the first half, and if it's not working for you, you have a proven winner in Mahomes in the passing game, and you just rely heavily on that. Tall task to do when you have two amazing DNs that are tail ending 49ers. But this is why you pay Mahomes the money you pay him, right? Is he makes things come out of nothing. It's just his receivers have to do what they've done all playoffs long and be consistent for him.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be the wide receiver core that we saw in the regular season for the 49ers. If we get that, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
Still, I don't think anyone has found out how to stop Travis Kelce from catching more than 10 passes a game. But 2 weeks of preparation, who knows? That could be the key. Is if you shut down Kelce, that's a problem for the rest of the team. But I don't know. I have faith in the Chiefs offense to be able to execute because, same thing. You have Andy Reid having 2 weeks how to game plan something. He's going to figure out some kind of weakness. He always does. But yeah, I think Mahomes, as dumb as it sounds or as redundant as it sounds, is the key for their offense. And then just being consistent and not turning the ball over. Once again, another basic point, but this is what elite teams do very, very well. They don't turn the ball over. And in the Super Bowl, we've seen year after year, it's the turnovers that matter, the turnovers that actually make the game. So in that case, the ball actually is in the Chiefs' court because you have a proven winner in Mahomes. It's just let him be effective. But let's see if that's gonna hold true or not.
Yeah, and I think the one thing you and I both agree on is with that run game, when it's effective, especially when it's a guy like Pacheco who runs hard, he's difficult to take down. It takes a lot of energy to take him down. Later in the game, when Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and all these guys are tired of taking down Isaiah Pacheco, that's Travis Kelce time. That's easy. Like, hey, Betty, you're too tired to guard me in coverage. I'm just going to do an option route or a dig route or whatever. You won't be able to keep up with me. So if it works to success with Pacheco, it sounds like a lot of pressure on Isaiah Pacheco, but if he is successful, I think the entire offense will be successful.
Yep, 100%. All right, so moving over to the 49ers offense, very different from the Chiefs offense. It's a very, what people like to call a system offense, a Kyle Shanahan system offense, but obviously it works in a very beautiful way when it works correctly, right?
Yeah.
And now they have their full strength. I believe Debo's fully good to go. No more issues on it. I mean, he played last 2 weeks ago, so 2 weeks rest should have him good. Keys to that game for them, or keys to winning for them, is long, methodical drives, in my opinion. And it's what this team does very well. They have a game manager in Purdy. You need to be a game manager. You're not Mahomes. Don't make magic happen out of nothing. Because when Purdy starts putting the ball into a area that is not safe, that's where the turnovers happen. But he has his full complement offensively, right? He has all of his offensive linemen. He has a healthy McCaffrey. He has Debo. He has Ayuk. And then you can never ever forget about George Kittle either, right? So you have all the pieces in play to sit there and say we are just as good as the Chiefs offense. It really just comes down to, are you going to let Brock Purdy be a game manager, or are you going to expect him to be a game changer? If you expect him to be a game changer, you're going to lose this game. But for me, it's Christian McCaffrey isn't like Pacheco where he needs to have 30 carries to finally break one off. He can break one off at any moment. But we've seen that this Chiefs defense is elite, and it's going to be interesting to see how much they use Christian McCaffrey. Are they going to use him heavily in the pass game too? Or are you going to have them, kind of do more than what he's supposed to do? Or are you going to expect Debo to be more than just a running back or a wide receiver, whatever you want to call him? You know what it is with the 49ers? It's a lot of potential, but then also, sometimes potential doesn't always play out. So if you have a slow start like you did with the Lions, the Chiefs are not the type of team that's going to let you get back into a game. It's not how they roll.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult for the Niners offense. I think within football circles and diehard fans, we give the props to the guy on the Chiefs side of the ball defensively with Spagnuolo, right? We know how good of the defense that is, especially when it comes playoff time for that Kansas City Chiefs defense. There's a lot more riding on like successful plays for the Niners. And that doesn't mean just execution of the play perfectly. Successful plays are going to have to rely on Brock Purdy and some magic from him as well, right? That's where it goes to where you said it, where it's like, hey, you don't have to do it all the time because you will throw a risky ball, and that's not the best thing to do against the Chiefs secondary. But you are going to have to make plays. You are going to have to use your legs. You are going to have to do what you did against Detroit. It might not be the prettiest game. He had an interception even in the Detroit game, but once he uses his legs, he's more effective. And especially against a Kansas City Chiefs defense in the playoffs, that's kind of the key, right? You said it. He has all the tools in the belt. He has McCaffrey, he has Kittle, he has Ayuk, he has Debo. But if he can't get the ball to those guys, or if they can't get yak, if they can't get the yards after catch, then they're behind the eight ball and not really looking too promising, right? Then it relies on the let's get a deep route developed, let's get a big play developed, and it goes away from Niners style offense, where I think the keys to the success are not only Brock Purdy's legs, I think it's McCaffrey's legs. You got to get him the ball in different ways outside of just running. Even if you're running, give him a stretch run. Don't run him in the middle towards Chris Jones, right? Don't send him down to Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquil and those guys. Well, I'll talk about why those guys are so important. But, get McCaffrey on the screens, get McCaffrey in the passing game as well out of the backfield with mismatches on these linebackers, get him the ball in different ways. And we know Kyle Shanahan's going to do that. But he's going to do the same thing with Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. That's where it gets risky because Kansas City's secondary is very good. I believe they're like the 4th ranked best secondary in the league. And it's very unsung for that defense, the secondary to be talked about, but they are a good secondary. So when Brock Purdy is trying to throw on this Kansas City Chiefs defense, he's going to have to be razor sharp. He won't have areas for error. And that's where the hesitation comes in, where it's like, yeah, on one side I have Patrick Mahomes, so I know I don't have to tell him to be razor sharp. But on the other side, I got a guy in Brock Purdy where he's never been in this situation before. There's going to be some pressure on him. So keys for the Niners is Brock's legs, McCaffrey's legs, and then overall just stay healthy throughout the game and get those yak yards, break tackles. Because the moment Debo can break a tackle or Kittle can break a tackle, those are the big plays. You're not going to get the 30-yard bomb down the field or 50-yard bomb down the field throwing it that way. You'll get it in yak. You'll get like a slant that goes for 25, 30 yards. That's how I see the Niners being able to move the ball and get points on the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, the big thing for them too is you got to score in that first half, man. You got to put yourself in a position where either you have the lead or the game is close. Because at the end of the day, the Chiefs have proven that when it comes to close games, that's where they win, right? So put yourself in a position where you don't have to fight back. You're not going to be coming back down from 24-7 is not a realistic possibility against the Chiefs. So it's staying in that game, and that's why I said long methodical drives. And when I say that, it's not because you need to sit there and have 14 play drives every single time, but don't put yourself in a position where it's 3rd and 10 constantly. Because like you said, against that secondary, good luck.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's what is it? They are 4th in team opponent completion percentage. The secondaries on top of that are Cleveland, New Orleans, the Jets, and then it goes to Kansas City. So it's not easy to complete passes on the Chiefs secondary. It's 60%. And I know that sounds pretty high, but if someone wants a reference point, the Chiefs are at 60% completion percentage. The Niners are at 65%. They're ranked 20th, whereas the Chiefs are ranked 4th. So 5% different makes a huge difference on the field.
Yep, for sure. All right, so moving to the other side of the ball, we'll start off with the Chiefs again on defense. What are you seeing as their keys to winning? What matchups are you excited to see?
Just reverse what I just said.
Basically,
you can't throw on the Chiefs defense, and especially in the playoff time. So the secondary can play. It's so beautiful for Spags because he can play so many different types of coverages, right? He's like, oh, I can do man, I can do zone man, I can do cover 2, cover 3, whatever I want to do because my corners and safeties are so good And they're not superstar players, like Sauce Gardner or, anything like that. But they're good players, and they're very smart, and they're very high IQ. And within their own system, they're very high IQ. And so you can't get a lot on those guys. You can get plays, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to get consistent chunk plays. So that's the key for Kansas City is force them to throw, force them to play into your strength on defense, which is your secondary. But on the flip side, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, Nick Bolton, and Drew Tranquill, those guys have to be monsters in the backfield and on the short yardage plays, meaning run plays and short passes. Tackle. We know the Niners love to get their yak. But if Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, Drew Tranquill, Nick Bolton, and all these other guys just swarm tackle, you can really put pressure on that Niners offense. And I personally think that is what's going to happen. But you can never know with like a Debo breaking one out or Kittle or McCaffrey. They're hard guys to tackle. That's the key. That is, they are very difficult to tackle. But for the Chiefs defense, if you can tackle and force Purdy to throw into your secondary, you have a better shot at winning the game.
Yeah, honestly, with how elite their secondary has been, who's to say why not stack the box? 8 guys in the box, trust your guys on the back end to do what they're going to do, and then, stop McCaffrey, right? Stop that run game. Stop that, if you watch the 49ers offense, it's not these elite, like, crazy long bombs they have. Like you said, it's yak. It's short game, and they rely on their wide receivers or Christian McCaffrey to break a tackle. But if you stack that box and clutter the entire middle of the field, and you rely on your secondary to basically lock down those guys, wide receiver-wise, and George Kittle, then you have a great chance of winning this game. You have a really great chance of actually putting it away early, if anything, if your offense is able to score. But that's, it's easier said than done. But, at this point, the way I see it for Spags is help the rest of the nation, help the rest of us fans who all season long said, why is Brock Purdy an MVP candidate? Why is he being touted so heavily? This is his chance to really just put it to rest and sit there and say, all right, cool. I literally just said, make the guy throw the ball. I'm going to stop the run. And this is why he's not elite. So if there's a person to do it, Spags is the guy.
Yeah. I wish it was Mike McDonald again in the Ravens, because we saw what McDonald did to the Niners offense in the regular season. If anything, we know Spags is probably watching that tape 100 times over again and saying, okay, I'm going to take this piece out of this game. And I'm going to watch that Cleveland game and see what Brock struggled with in that Cleveland game and take this piece and that piece and blah, blah, blah. But man, just having the luxury of a secondary that good, stack the box. Let's throw in not even just stack the box. Let's pretend like we're stacking the box and maybe just, let's throw 1 or 2 guys in the blitz and have 2 guys bump out in zone coverage. Like, Spags can do whatever he wants because that secondary is so good. So yeah. And also, again, just they can get pressure on Purdy. And if Purdy makes plays with his legs, that's key for him. But if they get pressure on Purdy, that's key for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah. All right. So 49ers defense, what do they have to do to get this done?
The taller task. And it sounds weird to say because it's been the struggling offense all year long with the Chiefs. But the taller task is, how do I stop the greatest quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes? Like we said early on, the offensive key for Mahomes is moving his legs. And that's the defensive key for the Niners, is to stop him from moving his legs, right? So Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, all these guys just have to wreak havoc in the backfield and just make sure that Patrick Mahomes does not step up in the pocket, make sure he does not step to the right or to the left. You just got to keep getting pressure on him and containing him, which sounds weird to say because you want to contain guys like Lamar Jackson and stuff like that, or Justin Fields, but you got to learn how to contain Patrick Mahomes. Otherwise, he's going to do what he did last Super Bowl. Even on a bum ankle, he's going to run it for like 30-something yards, and that's the game. That's the play of the game. So for the Niners defense, contain Patrick Mahomes, just continuously get pressure on him and force the other receivers outside of Rasheed and Travis Kelce to make plays. I'm not too worried about like Fred Warner and coverage on Kelce early on in the game. Like I mentioned, later on in the game when Pacheco wears you out, that's where it gets tricky. But early on in the game, I'm not too worried. So if Fred Warner and all these secondary guys are able and capable of guarding Kelce and Rice early on in the game, you can probably get a turnover or interception off Mahomes in the first and second quarter. That's where you got to win it and capitalize on those turnovers. Force Watson, force Marquez Valdez-Scantling, force these guys to be the guys to make plays on you, because we know, especially we know with Kelce, but now with Rashee Rice emergence, it's hard to stop both of those guys when they're going. They're quiet killers. They're not going to be the sexy 50-yard bombs like Tyreek. They're quiet killers. They're going to get like a 8-yard catch and go for like another 10 yards or something like that. So that's the key for the Niners. Contain Mahomes, stop him from using his legs, and force the others to make plays, force the other receivers to make plays. I think they'll be okay with Pacheco. We know that they're a good run defense, so it's not a major key, but it later on can become a major key if they can't contain him and stop him.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for the 49ers is it's very simple. It's discipline. It's simply discipline. Just to go off your point about containment. Containment isn't done because you're an elite, right? Containment is done because you are sound and disciplined. So yeah, for anyone that hasn't watched the Chiefs in this playoffs, they're not, like you said, they're not throwing 50-yard bombs. They're playing quick game. Honestly, they're throwing screens. They're throwing quick little passes. They're putting themselves in position on third down where they're not. It's not 3rd and 10, not on 3rd and 15, right? They're not taking these like long sacks. So, it's about being It's going to get boring. It really is. It's going to sit there and say, shit, I have to constantly rush a quarterback that's getting the ball off quickly, right?
Yeah.
And that works to a certain degree. And then all of a sudden you have a play that's a 3rd down play, and you want to make an elite play, right? You want to be a Bosa, right? And you want to literally just go and do something crazy. That's where they get you, right? That's where they expect you to be undisciplined. And you're not containing Mahomes because you want to go and sack him. So you're not containing the edge. You're not, doing what you need to do to make sure he stays in the pocket and doesn't do what he always does with his magic Mahomesness and his running ability. So you have to be disciplined. And you know what discipline does is it causes frustration. If there's one thing we know about the Chiefs offense is if things don't go well, and like I said last week, they're a whiny team. They complain about everything, right? All of a sudden, you're going to have a disciplined defense basically stopping everything, not letting small things get out of the way, frustrating Kelce by not getting open or tackling him and making him, drop balls or whatever. Once you get Travis Kelce frustrated, it permeates, right? Once you get Mahomes starting to complain about everything, just be pissed off about shit. We've seen that. That's what happened during the regular season. Is they would have multiple drives in a row where nothing would happen. They would have 3 and outs, and it frustrates the shit out of them. And that's not the way they like to operate. So, and that comes from discipline. That comes from the DNs, which I think are the biggest factor in this game. Is discipline also means relentless effort. And when I say that, I'm talking to Chase Young, dude. You've been called out a lot about your lack of effort. The Super Bowl is probably the game of your entire life where you literally, your motor's at 100%. Your discipline's at 100%, right? If you're 10 yards away from a play, don't walk, right? All it takes is one breakaway tackle from Pacheco, right? And you're 10 yards away. You could have got there, right? Well, all of a sudden he has an open gap because you weren't there pursuing the ball. Same thing for the secondary. Is you're going to have him get out of the pocket. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Stay with your receivers. Stay disciplined. Do not get out of coverage. And that's what the Chiefs rely on. So I don't know. Look at that. It's discipline for me. That's the biggest thing.
It is. And discipline goes to each player has to win their assignment. I know early on I said I don't want to talk about each individual player because that's a battle within their own game. But for the Niners, it's like 80 to 90% of the snaps, 80 to 90% of the players on the field need to win their assignment and stay disciplined. If Mahomes is breaking free in the pocket and scrambling, secondary, stay on your assignment, right? if Kelsey is starting to get frustrated or sorry, starting to frustrate you and catching balls, stay on your assignment. Don't let them get in your head, because that's what they do. When they play cute and get fancy and start making these plays and getting Magic Mahomes, and you have Kelsey shimmying and, like, dancing and stuff, they're in your head, right?
Yep.
So it's like a weird perfect matchup for the Niners. They have, even though the Vegas odds doesn't have them as an underdog, I think every NFL fan knows they're the underdog. Every true NFL fan knows that the Niners, as good as they are, as great as their roster is, as strong as they've been all season long, the juggernaut that is the Kansas City Chiefs fucks with your head when you play against them. And it doesn't matter if you're the Niners, if you're the Ravens, you're the Bills, or the Bengals. Like, they somehow, some way, come playoff time, get in your fucking head. And when they start scoring and they start winning, you yourself get into that same zone that they want you to be in. So for the Niners, it's not only discipline, it's not only winning your assignments, be the more mentally tough and physically tough team. It's a lot to ask for from a team in the playoffs, and on top of that in the Super Bowl, to do against the Kansas City Chiefs. But it's like it's insanely difficult to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. Insane. You have to be razor sharp focused. So it'll be interesting to see, for sure.
Yeah, I think one person that has to really step up for the 49ers, right, is the person that's been on the other side. That's Jadarius Ward. You got to be telling your guys in the secondary, look, do not get off your coverage, right? He knows exactly what Mahomes can do. So you have a guy on your team that knows exactly what can happen. Listen to him, right? You got to be that voice. You got to literally be in your guys' ear, like, look, he's going to do this shit. Trust me. This is exactly what he's going to do. So use that experience, use that to your benefit, right? And it's like, it's a small cheat code. You don't got a full, like, Midway Sports or Midwest, whatever the hell that game used to be called, where you could put the codes in. But you do have something, right? You do have a little bit of experience on your side to help you out. So let's see what happens. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if there's one game to really do everything you can to win, put every single ounce of effort in, every ounce of discipline, every single ounce of concentration in, it is this game. Yeah, right? You've had 2 weeks to prepare for it. You got to go into it. And sorry, I know we're not talking about individual players, but I actually liked. I mean, for anyone that hasn't watched Nick Bosa, he's the most. A lot of people use the word douche when it comes to him, because he's just very straightforward in the way that he talks. A lot of the way that he talks is just a lot of shade thrown on people. That's just who he is, right? I actually love the fact that he called out the fact when they're talking about the offensive line. He's like, yeah, they hold a lot. So people don't think that's a big. People are like, oh, he's taking a shot. I think it's smart that he called it out, because guess what? Now that's been talked about left and right. Now the refs know, right? The refs, you got someone chirping about it. It's something that you're going to have in the back of your head too. It's a little nugget. So smart on him for doing that. I don't know if that's just going to pan out his way, but, anything you can do to get a slight advantage, and I actually kind of respect him for doing that.
Maybe Micah should have done that. Yeah, no, but it is a psychological thing, right? Like, you could see it as, oh, look at this guy, he's complaining about the Chiefs getting away with stuff. Or you could look at it like a player and be like, no, the refs should now pay attention to this. I said this. The refs should know that, I said this. So it'll be interesting to see. I think this has been 4 years, pardon my math, but 4 years in the making for the Niners, right, to get their revenge. And a lot of these guys with Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, a lot of these guys were on that team 4 years ago. Trent Williams. So they're ready for revenge. But you can be overconfident and think that you got this, and then that team comes out and smacks you in the mouth, or you play up to what the revenge really is and get it. I personally, before we started recording this episode, I had been jaded about this Super Bowl. I wasn't really excited about it. I think I mentioned this on last week's episode or whatever. I was tired of seeing the same teams over and over again. But the more I think about it from the Niners' perspective, I'm excited to see how a team responds and actually gets their shot, gets their lick of trying to get their revenge, and seeing what those players do. That's the story I'm more intrigued about, with the Niners at least.
Yeah, it's a long time coming, right? Except 4 years ago, they got smacked. Well, they didn't get
Mhm.
smacked, but they got outplayed. And then last season, unfortunately, you had an NFC Championship game, Brock Purdy going down. So you've had all these little turmoil moments bringing up to this. You have it. There's no more excuses now, right? It's you're back in the Super Bowl. You have your full roster ahead of you. You have a coach that's now tenured, that's been in the Super Bowl. You have experience, which you didn't have 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I know everyone wants to sit there and say, "Oh, well, the Chiefs, with the amount of experience they have in the Super Bowl, that gives them the advantage." It's well, the 49ers have experience too, right? It's just
Yeah.
maybe not in the biggest moments, but now they're back again. For anyone that doesn't know, it's actually very difficult. I wish I had the stat, but teams that lose in the Super Bowl, for them to make their way back to the Super Bowl is actually very, very difficult for teams to
Yeah.
do. I forgot what the percentage is, but the 49ers have made it back now, second time in 4 or 5 years, whatever it is. So I'm excited to see what kind of football they come out with.
Yeah. If you're a New England fan or Kansas City fan, your teams are the abnormal. The making it to the Super Bowl that many times is not normal. Like there's a reason you have the GOAT in Tom Brady, and this leads to my second point with the fun of watching this game is I think it'd be really cool, and this is a selfish point for me. I think it'd be really cool to say I got to see Tom Brady win 7 Super Bowls and potentially Patrick Mahomes win 7 Super Bowls or more. Like, I think that'd be pretty cool to say. Like, he'd be at 3 already, and I'd be able to say that like I saw Tom win his, and I'm damn sure I'm like close to halfway seeing Patrick beat that record. So that's selfish of me to say, but as a football fan, there's very few times where like you can say stuff like, "I didn't get to watch Joe Montana. I didn't get to watch those guys." So to be able to say I got to watch Brady, I got to watch Manning, and now add in Mahomes to that list, it's pretty special for me.
Yeah, both
Yeah,
ways, right? And it's the Patrick Mahomes thing, but it's also how cool would it be to sit there and say, "Well, I watched Mister Irrelevant win a Super Bowl," right?
yeah,
We talk about it so much, right? About Super Bowl QBs being first round draft picks. You and I have harped on that on the podcast. We have harped on it on guys that we
offline.
hang out with,
Yeah.
guys that we every once in a while hang out with. That you know, you harped on it with a guy from Houston that you didn't even. We've gotten into many a debates with people about this, but you know, uh, that's one cool way to get us to shut up is, hey, seventh round draft pick somehow
Oh, I
won the
I
Super
can't
Bowl. So
I can't wait. If Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, I'm gonna get so much shit from everyone that argued against me on that, and I'll take it. I don't care. Prove me wrong, and that's
yeah,
fine. Um, but hey, until then, I'm still right.
Tom Brady. But okay.
Hey, my argument, I took out Tom Brady's numbers, and it's still the first round pick. Anyways, but yeah, we'll wrap it up with. Do you want to do
Super
MVP
Bowl
first, or
predictions. I guess we should do a Super Bowl winner, and then obviously because the winner that obviously brings up
okay?
who the MVP is. So
I am going to lean towards my Super Bowl winner as the Kansas City Chiefs with the score of 30-17. And I'm going with the conspiracy story theory of the number 13. Oh God. So either way, if my score is wrong, that's fine, but I think the Chiefs win.
okay, and your MVP.
My MVP. Now the script would be insane if it was Travis Kelce. Here's where I have a dilemma because my heart tells me that I want Chris Jones to win MVP, but my gut tells me it's going to be Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
he
see,
usually
yeah,
ends up being the QB,
yeah.
sadly.
But you see where my heart is, where I'm like, no, I think I really would love to see like a defensive player like Chris Jones win MVP. That's where my heart is. But my gut tells me MVP is going to be Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. My Super Bowl prediction winner is the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, okay.
I love it. I love a team that has fought their way back. I love a team with a great quarterback story. I love a team that basically, you know, from the start, basically has had us predicting them to be here. went through their turmoil, obviously, and then now they're here, coming back from a crazy win from last week or 2 weeks ago. It's a really good storyline for me, but the storyline also is accompanied by a team that has been tough to play, right? Even in their losses, it's not like they're being blown out. So you have a great team that's been stacked. The talent that's been brought on that team, it's all been cumulated for a reason, right? So I have the 49ers winning this. I would love to sit there and have a team have more Super Bowls than the Cowboys too. That's a little jab at everyone here. So love to see
Oh
that.
God!
Score, I see it being 24-14.
Wow.
Yeah, a little bit lower scoring than we probably think, but 24-14, Super Bowl MVP. I'm gonna give it to the guy that's pretty much go gadget for them. And it's gonna be Christian McCaffrey.
CMC. Yeah.
I see him at least with one touchdown, but I think he's gonna have a crazy run that just blows our mind. That just kind of puts the exclamation mark on it, or is in the beginning of the game and it's just a statement. So Christian McCaffrey, Super Bowl MVP, 49ers, Super Bowl winners.
We're on completely different spectrums. Rarely for like this first time, maybe second time this season.
Yeah, so all those people that complain to me in person as well that, me and Shahan agree on everything. Well, I can't say what I want to say. It's a little too R-rated, but, have fun at home crying.
I'll say it, and I'm going to take a line from Colin Cowherd. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. So even when we're wrong, we're right. We can agree with each other, but guess what? We're correct more times than we are incorrect.
I'm going to quote one of our friends, Osama Zuffer, who was on our podcast earlier. For anyone that thinks that we don't disagree, you're wrong. So have fun with dick in hand.
That works too.
Yeah,
I'll stick with Ozzy's. Yeah, I'll stick with Ozzy's quote. Screw you, Colin Cowherd.
But it has been a very fun season. It's been great being on this platform. We obviously have one more podcast after this to break everything down, but finally here, man. Finally at the Super Bowl. This is honestly what we all love, regardless of how I feel about it, how you may have felt about it early on. It's still a star-studded Super Bowl, right? At the end of the day, you're getting two teams that are very well messed up with superstars on both teams. So it is what it is, and we're here.
It is what it is. We are here. I'm going to wrap up with one last question, and I probably should save this for, and you let me know if you want me to save it for next week. Your most disappointing story of the season and your most surprising story of the season. And if you want, we can save it and leave it as a cliffhanger for next week, or we can go.
No, we can do it now. At this point, okay. Disappointment, and this comes from probably personal bias, realistically. Disappointment for me this season has been the Cincinnati Bengals. Just it always sucks having your star QB be injured. Obviously, as a fan, it sucks to see too, because it just kind of takes the entire air out of everything, right? And then it's one of those things where well, let me say this: my biggest disappointment team-wise, but then overall, is just the amount of injuries in the NFL this season. It just has really sucked, man. Like, I think this season, probably more than most seasons I can recall, is just so many injuries across the board, man. It's just really kind of sucked. As a football fan, man, you don't want to see these superstars get hurt, man. You want to have what we were so excited about in the early season, right? These AFC QBs that are just going to absolutely just go at each other, right? Unfortunately, we had a lot of injuries that prevented that. But yeah, that's my biggest disappointment. Biggest surprise this season has been the massive turnaround of the Houston Texans. To go from basically what was a second round or a second draft pick, to being a playoff team that is honestly not just a playoff team, but a very contender-wise playoff team, has been great. With rookie QB, rookie head coach, young core wide receivers. I wasn't expecting it. I thought they would have an okay season, but not a playoff season.
Yeah, they got the playoff win at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't think this through. That's why I thought we'd do next week.
You're like, shit.
Yeah. But I'll go with we'll do it again in depth. But I think the biggest disappointment is injuries. It sounds cliche, and I know where I'm agreeing with you. But when you look at it, like one of the biggest disappointments team wise was like the Vikings, right? But then you look at it, and Kirk Cousins got hurt. The Jets, huge disappointment, but Aaron Rodgers got hurt. So I can't really be disappointed. I can't blame a guy for getting hurt. I can be just disappointed that the guy got hurt. So injuries, I agree with. That was a huge disappointment, and that falls in line with those teams that I mentioned. I was kind of disappointed that I didn't get to see those teams at 100%. Biggest surprise, I do agree with the Texans. So I don't want to sound like I'm agreeing again, but yes, the Texans were a biggest surprise. The Bucks should be on there for a lot of people as a big surprise. Yes,
Yeah.
Baker for sure should be on there as to a lot of people. And then for me personally, I knew he was good. I knew he was talented. I didn't know how good, and that was Jordan Love.
Okay.
His start of the season was a big question mark and a rolling ball of cloud and uncertainty, and the ball started to unravel, and he started to show his skills, and LaFleur started to show his skills as a coach. And so the Packers were a big surprise to me to be able to not only just get into the playoffs, but to win a playoff game with a young Jordan Love, rookie and second year wide receivers, inexperienced team. That was very impressive to me. What the Green Bay Packers did with Jordan Love. So Love and LaFleur was very surprising. I shouldn't say very, but
yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just thought of one final question because it's been brought up the last couple days.
Okay.
Andy Reid, does he retire or not?
No. I don't know why that would be a question. Why would the guy retire? It's like his, I don't know how many Super Bowls in how many years. Like at this point, Andy Reid himself knows this is my bread and butter. Me, Spags, and Patrick Mahomes. That's the bread and butter. So why would he retire? I mean, unless it's a health concern, God forbid that happens or anything like that. The dude's one of the few older coaches in the leagues that gets success out of his team. And it's a little bit of shade towards Bill Belichick because I know he didn't get hired and all that stuff. But we've seen the trend, right? Teams are going younger with their head coach. Teams are going with player coaches. Teams are going with relatable coaches that their players can connect with. During these Super Bowl press conferences, somebody asked Patrick Mahomes about Andy Reid. And I think the one thing he said was, he's like that cool uncle, but you don't want to piss him off, right? He lets you do a lot of things and gets away with it, and like you can get away with it. And he's soft, like he won't berate you on a lot of stuff. But if you do screw up, he's gonna get mad at you. And his coaching style works, and his players respect it. I don't even know why that would even be a question. Why Andy Reid would retire? Heck, dude had Eric Bieniemy come in before the AFC Championship game, and people were praising Bieniemy. Like, I don't know if you saw that story.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that I was tooting my own horn there. But yeah, I didn't know people had that even thought. I didn't see it anywhere on social. I didn't know people had that thought. Like, oh, should
so there was a Bleacher Report article that came out about it, and the reason that came up was the unexpected departure of Nick Saban from a dynasty. Right? No one thought that he would step down. There was no inkling of him wanting to step down. So it's kind of the same thing here, where it's like, can people see him retiring if he wins the Super Bowl? Because, I mean, there's not much more to prove. Obviously, all there is for him is just to add on to legacy, right? But, I mean, I don't think he's going to retire. I don't see any, unless it's really just he's tired of the grind and wants to spend time with the family. It doesn't sound like he wants to spend time with the family. It sounds like the guys in the locker room are definitely all of his little kids. So, and I agree with you, dude. I think, with Belichick leaving and this whole shift to the younger guard, Andy Reid is starting to become one of the last, old guard guys, but he's not. I wouldn't quote him to be old guard, right? Because like you said, he's a player's coach, right? Well, the old guard is more of a disciplinarian. So to see a coach be so successful, I mean, he's no doubt Hall of Fame is going to
Yeah.
be in his ballot very soon. But to see an older coach that is able to adapt and be around his players and truly just love coaching, it's something that we expect out of I don't know, Mike McDonald or Ben Johnson or any of these younger coaches, right? So,
Dan Campbell.
yeah,
Yeah.
you see Dan Campbell?
Yeah, Dan Campbell. Yeah.
He's not young, but okay.
And for a head coach, yes. I mean, historically speaking, we've seen older head coaches, right? But for me, it sounds weird, but like Andy Reid's the old regime of head coaches. Like he's from that coaching tree. Forgot. Oh my god, I can't believe I just forgot that coach. He's from that coaching tree, but it's like weird because Reid is an older coach with a younger coach mentality, but he knows the knowledge of like what older coaches used to do and what worked back then. And this is why I always say it, football is cyclical. It's not just cyclical in terms of like what's the play style of run and pass and blah blah blah. It's cyclical and also like head coaches and personnel and how it works, right? So like Reed knows that a lot of these young guys coming in are players, coaches, they're buddy buddies, they're younger, they're more aggressive, XYZ, right? But Andy Reid has like this Rolodex of just plays and situations and experience that these younger guys don't have. And when he's incorporating that Rolodex of information on top of new age football, he's like a superpower. Like you can't stop him because he knows what to get out of in the modern day football, but he also knows what was working in the old days football. And so he becomes like this superpower of a head coach. He's the best head coach in the league right now. And this was even if you asked me 2 years ago when Belichick was still coaching, Andy Reid was the best head coach in the league. He's no doubt with Belichick not having a job, he's the best head coach in the league.
I can agree with that.
Hmm?
Random question. Sorry, I got just another question here.
No, go for it.
Do you think the NFL, at least coaching wise, right, is it starting to become more like European soccer in the sense that, and this is me not knowing soccer enough, so maybe I'm wrong, so let me know. But I feel like when I watch soccer, it's like you get all these younger coaches, right? All these player coaches, or all these coaches that used to play, right? You no longer, like when I used to watch, the Premier League, it was like Sir Alexander Ferguson, right? Like these old guards, but now you got like young dudes like Klopp, and you got I don't even want to say Jose Mourinho, but fuck it, I will. You got these younger guys that are just so successful. Zidane, right? Great success. Is that something you see the NFL starting to shift toward, or is that something? And same thing with tenure too. It just feels like the patience for head coaches is not there anymore in the NFL.
So, go ahead.
No, so what I'm saying is, for me at least, and this is just from a limited knowledge of soccer too, right? It seems like it's a shift to that mentality.
So the longevity or tenure of the coaches, yes. Soccer wise, football wise, like I mean, I'm seeing stuff about like Xavi leaving Barcelona and Klopp is leaving Liverpool and stuff like that, right? And these are, in my opinion, I think Xavi is a good coach, and Klopp obviously is a good coach, but there's less patience in European soccer, especially when you're in the big club like Barcelona, Real, Liverpool, and Man City and Man United, right? There's less patience there. Heck, I'm a Chelsea fan, and I've seen Chelsea go through more managers than the Cowboys have gone through, like entire coaching staffs, right? So, tenure-wise, there's no patience there. You got to win. You got to show your board members that you can get success right away with whatever players you give me, and then I can start demanding more players, right? And to a certain extent, that works with the head coach in the NFL, but I think they're given a little bit more leeway. Where if we want to say, I think a Premier League manager might get like 2 years, and that's graciously 2 years. Sometimes they get sacked after like 6 months, right? I think if you give a manager 2 years in the Premier League, that's pretty fair. But in the NFL, you give them 4. You let them go through drafts. You let them find, their quarterbacks and their assistant coaches and their schemes and stuff like that. You're also inheriting a lot of players that maybe you don't want, and it's a different thing, like in terms of comparison to apples to oranges. But in terms of the NFL going younger, I think I thought about this for a very, very long time, and I didn't know I'm going to have to word it in this way, but I think it's time people realize that the old guard is done. Like it's done. And this is no knock, like I said, to Belichick or any of those guys. But some of these guys, like Nick Saban left Bama not just because of the NIL stuff. We know that was a major factor. But it was also because like he knows that eventually there is a disconnect between himself and this younger generation. And when you're 60, 70 years old, you don't have some of that patience and time and dedication to continue and work and build with these younger guys. And same thing for organizations too, right? Maybe you don't hire Bill Belichick not because of he's old, that's ageist, but because maybe he can't connect with the guys in the locker room. And maybe these guys need a coach that they can come and talk to, or they need a coach that lets them be themselves and stuff like that. That's why we're seeing guys successful like Sean McVay, like Kyle Shanahan, like
Mike McDaniels,
Dan Campbell. Not only are these players coaches, but some of these guys are ex-players, right? So they know the locker room vibe. They know what guys talk about after a loss. They know what guys talk about after a win. They know what's eating at them when they have a bad play or a bad game or something like that. Dan Campbell knows that if Sam Laporta has a bad game, he was a tight end. He knows exactly what to come up and talk to Sam Laporta about, right? Yep. So I think people need to realize, this is very long. Sorry, I didn't mean to go so long into this. But this is what I get jazzed up about, because this is what makes me excited about football, because I think people need to realize is that we are going younger. When we hear complaints about, oh, the QBs suck and they're not as good and blah, blah, blah. Bro, they're kids. They're just getting their feet wet into the league. We just now got rid of the old guard. We just now, with Tom Brady leaving, we finally got rid of the old guard. The oldest quarterback in the leagues are like Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Derek Carr. These are some of the oldest guys in the league. Ryan Tannehill. So the days of Rivers and Romo and Breeze and Roethlisberger, those days are gone. But we had like 10 years of those guys. Now we're going to get hopefully 10 years of these guys. And we're going to talk about, Sean McVay as a coach when he's 50, hopefully. Or we're going to talk about Kyle Shanahan as a coach when he's 60. And then some other young guy's going to come in and be like, hey, Kyle, no, like, this is how we're going to do it. So there is a shift. It's good that there is a shift, because I don't think some of these head coaches can connect with these players. I get frustrated when I hear, I'm going to talk about the Cowboys for a little bit, but I get frustrated when I hear, oh, we're interviewing Rex Ryan, or we're interviewing Ron Rivera, or we're interviewing Mike Zimmer, which I like Mike Zimmer.
I like Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, I like Mike Zimmer too. But like they're three older guys, and one of them hasn't coached in the league for forever. He was an analyst on ESPN. The other guy just got fired from your division rival, and the other guy hasn't coached in a little bit as well. Out of those three dudes you're interviewing, and there's probably more down the line, hopefully, if you're a player, right, think of yourself as 22, 23 years old. Are you really going to want to be coached by Ron Rivera? Are you really going to want to be coached by, what is it, Rex Ryan? Mike Zimmer might be different. Zimmer's coaching style isn't the best, but he has success, so sure. But even Mike Zimmer, do you really want to be coached by Mike Zimmer, or would you rather be coached by D'Amico Ryans, the guy I played like 3 years ago against, who knows who I am personally and who knows how I play on the field?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That shift is happening. So I think coaches are struggling to connect with the players. I think that's what happened with Bruce Arians and Antonio Brown. I don't think Bruce Arians could understand the point where Antonio Brown is coming from, right? And so Bruce himself was probably like, dude, I can't fucking deal with it. And at a certain point, players and coaches are starting to butt heads, and I think the older coaches and the younger players just can't communicate and get on the same page. And it's very rare when they do. You have success like Andy Reid and Mahomes. To a certain extent, you have success like McCarthy and Dak Prescott, but Prescott's a little bit older. So it's hard. It's such a weird and difficult way to go in the NFL. I mean, we saw Aaron Rodgers be older than his head coach and Matt LaFleur. And there was controversy there, right? Like maybe Rodgers isn't respecting LaFleur. Maybe Rodgers isn't, so it's like, it's tough. And it's tough for a franchise to sit there and be like, yeah, we want to go younger. But then sometimes you don't even know if these young guys are good. We've been praising Mike McDonald all year long, and we think he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. We don't know how he's going to be in Seattle. We don't know when his roster or the players that he has to manage goes from 13, 15 guys to 52 to 60 guys. We don't know how he's going to manage that. So as much as we want to praise him, it's scary for even the franchises to go take a risk on the top candidate, whether it's Ben Johnson, whether it's Mike McDonald, but yeah, it's tough. The coaching of the NFL is drastically changing. The league is drastically changing, and I think it's about time. These questions I'm glad they're being asked. I just kind of saw it like last year, and I'm glad like people are catching up and seeing it. Just a really quick wrap up. I went on like a 12-minute rant, but really quickly, just to wrap up, because we didn't get to talk about it. And Ben Johnson, I'm sure you're upset that he didn't take a head coaching job, correct?
I'm actually not.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually not. Because I think the options that were left for him when he was finally being interviewed were not great. I don't blame him for not going to the Commanders.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people are sitting there trying to saying, I mean, the narrative here is he wants to be able to take on a team that isn't a complete project like the Commanders would be, right? He wants to jump into something that could be relatively successful right away. So I respect that. You understand where you're at, and I think that's the mentality shift that we're starting to see too, right? It used to be, I'm being offered a head coaching job, got it. Great example, Freddie Kitchens. Great example, right? The guy was nowhere near ready to handle a complete shit show of a roster, right? He was great with his, like you said, 13, 14, 15 guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to be the guy fully accountable for an entire team, he wasn't there. So I think Ben Johnson's aware of that. I think he's aware of what his strengths are. And I think he also understands that the situation he has in Detroit is ideal, right? You are already a hot commodity. Detroit is on the upswing as far as, I don't think their offense is going to have a major pushback next season, if not even better, possibly. So I think he knows he'll be a hot commodity next season as well. I think he's just buying his time for a better position. Initially, I was upset just because I'm like, why would no one want to pick up Ben Johnson? But it is what it is. And I think if he doesn't get a job next season, then I'll be kind of confused. But I can almost respect it, right? Because you're literally turning down a promotion, right? It's not a small. I mean, these head coach. I mean, fucking Jim Harbaugh is getting paid $16 million a year, right?
Yeah.
So, the enticement's there, but he didn't bite on it. I can respect that.
For me, it wasn't the opportunities that were present to him. Seattle, Washington, Atlanta, right? It wasn't that these opportunities weren't enticing. I think, and this is just I have never spoken a word to Ben Johnson in my life, and I'm just going to assume that he felt like there was unfinished business. Mm-hmm. And he also felt like there was a lot more for him to learn. You got to understand, Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson probably have never been in a playoff situation, yet alone an NFC championship game, right? So when you are seeing your head coach going through a learning experience, you probably take a step back and reevaluate yourself and be like, whoa, hold up. If coach is, learning stuff still, I got a lot to learn too. And to me, I felt like Ben Johnson rejected those opportunities because he knew they weren't the best situation. Maybe Atlanta. He knew they weren't the best situation, but B, I think Ben Johnson himself was like, no, I still have a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn on how to people manage. I still have a lot to learn on how to game manage, situationally manage things. And there's unfinished business here with Jared and this offense and all that. So that's where I ended up with the Ben Johnson situation, where we love him. We think he's going to be a great head coach. We hope he's going to be a great head coach. But I think we both, in different ways, agree that it was smart for him not to take the opportunities that were presented to him.
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing we know about the NFL: there's always going to be opportunities, right? So,
yeah,
who's to say next season he won't pick something up? But I think head coaching comes down to understanding culture, right? More than anything else. I've harped on all season long about head coaches are only as good as their assistants, right? So maybe he doesn't have that network yet. Maybe it's a situation where he just doesn't have the guys that he would want to bring over. I don't know. But I think he's in probably one of the best cultures in the league in Detroit. And to sit there and say, well, let me go to the Commanders. And there was reports about the Commanders. He got the ick from their front office, not really liking, and the culture there isn't that great right now. And, Dan Campbell has a lot of work ahead of him, but if there's a guy that is tried and true that has that grit, it's definitely Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
And then same thing, I think with Seattle, I think knowing that you're going to be underneath Pete Carroll's kind of shadow with him still being around the organization, you don't have that full autonomy and you're always going to be judged for every single thing you do. I can see why. I mean, the only place that was the Falcons. I was like, that's a decent opportunity. The front office there is pretty great, but I think it goes back to what you said. It's just maybe there's unfinished business, and I respect that a lot. At the end of the day, it's like you wanna have that head coach eventually that has a mentality of I'm not going to leave when things get easy for me, or I'm not going to leave when things get hard. I'm going to be here because I need to bring a certain culture here, and this is my team. So
the reason I brought up Ben Johnson is to lead into this back into the Super Bowl in Steve Spagnuolo. And Spags won a Super Bowl with the Giants. And I don't think a lot of people know, or maybe tend to forget, he was an interim head coach for the Giants after that when they started playing bad. And then he had a head coaching job in St. Louis. And he only went like 11-40 something. He was not good as a head coach. But he knew, and Andy Reid knew, this guy is great as a defensive coordinator. That guy, Andy Reid, saw that guy in the NFC East when Reid was coaching the Eagles. He knew how good that guy was. But it's like, it kind of sounds weird, but it's Eric Bieniemy and Steve Spagnuolo probably know they are the best, or the top 3 of their respective coordinating positions. And they probably know, at least Steve Spagnuolo probably knows, there's no better side to this. Being a head coach, I tried it. It didn't work for me. So I know that I can be the best defensive coordinator and consistently make it to a Super Bowl. And I think at a certain point, Eric Bieniemy kind of knows that too, where it's like, we don't know how he's going to be as a head coach. Well, maybe we get to see it. Maybe we don't. But I think Eric Bieniemy knows he is a good offensive coordinator. And he knows that if he's with Andy Reid, he will get to the Super Bowl, because Reid lets those guys do what they're best at. Weirdly, in a way, I tie that back to Ben Johnson, because maybe this is Ben Johnson realizing maybe I'm the best offensive coordinator, or there's more for me to learn and I can become a good head coach. We'll find out.
There's a lot of pride in that, man. I can respect a man of knowing his limits, right? There's nothing wrong with being the best coordinator alive, right? And that's where your limits kind of, phase out at. So there's nothing wrong with it. You had a big gripe I have is a lot of these head coaches that go from being fired to going to being coordinators again, and they're simply there just to get their next step up, right? So it takes, I think, a larger man or a bigger man to sit there and say, I had my chance. It wasn't that great. I didn't connect. I had all the opportunities in the world, but this is where I thrive. This is my little niche right here.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. There's when did it have to be that? When did it have to be where the end goal always has to be being a head coach? I think that's a dirty mentality. I think that's just a mentality that's set up that ultimately puts a lot of coaches into positions where they are not successful.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing wrong when you go down the history books and you open up the book of Steve Spagnuolo, and at this point he can hold up 3 fingers and be like, "Buddy, I got 3 rings. What do you got? You were a head coach. What do you got?" You know. So there's nothing wrong. And when a coach, and this is why I love sports, team sports especially, when a coach or a player realize that my individual success should not overshadow team success, that is when you are a good coach or good player. That is when you know that team success is more important. My individual success comes when the team is successful. Spagnuolo knows that I will get praise when that defense is successful, right? And it's the same thing. They don't get jaded that Andy Reid gets the spotlight. They love Big Red and they love him being goofy in the State Farm commercials and whatnot. That's fine. They don't care for that. They care to win, right? They know if they're the best at what they do, and they take care of themselves, the team will win, and when the team wins, they win. It's pretty cool. I've been thinking about that a lot, and like just certain coordinators are just great coordinators, horrible head coaches. And sometimes it's tough for those guys to realize that sometimes you have to go through the fire and be a head coach and just get shitted on, right? Jim Schwartz got destroyed in Detroit. He was the head coach for a while. He has one of the number 1 defenses in Cleveland. Great defensive coordinator. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles as a coordinator. Great coordinator. Got ripped apart in Detroit as a head coach. Sometimes you just know, man. And I don't know. I hope Ben Johnson is taking that into consideration, but I also know the guy wants success. Everyone does. You want to be the head coach. You want to be the guy that holds up the Lombardi trophy on the stage, right? But a part of me, because I love Ben Johnson so much, also makes me think that, hey, I got to learn a lot more and see if I'm well equipped to be a head coach. So I don't know how we ended up on this tangent, but now we did.
Just a lot. This is, like I said, a Super Bowl super episode where we jump into almost every single topic we can think of. Yeah. But good way to tie it in at the end with Spagnuolo. So we'll see how this plans out. I don't know. This Super Bowl can go any which way, man. You know what it is? I just want a good Super Bowl. That's it. Just a fan of football. Just want a great Super Bowl. Maybe a game-winning drive to end the game. I mean, you're gonna write a script, maybe at least make it good.
I would love a Butker game-winning field goal. That would make me happy.
I would like a Moody game-winning field goal.
This is just taking what I said, man. You couldn't say like a CMC game-winning touchdown?
No, dude. Think about how cool. Like, what was your mood? It's pretty good, elite.
I would rather see CMC.
Dude, what do you want me to say? Oh, it was really Purdy winning the Super Bowl. Like, that sounds stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great headline. Jot it down, New York Times. It was a Purdy.
Sure, someone probably fucking has.
Oh, it's out there, yeah. Alrighty, we went off the rails, but we will be back next week, wrapping up the Super Bowl. We'll wrap up the season. I'm going to just leave this little tidbit in here for the clip. If you guys have any questions about a team or anything like that, player that happened throughout the rest of this season, let us know. We'll talk about it in next week's episode. This has been the Talk Your Game podcast. I'm Shahan. That's Kev. We'll see you guys next week.
Later, boys.